Today, I am going to explain a horror, science fiction, mystery movie called Cabin Fever. Please be aware, the video contains spoilers. We start the movie with a hermit returning to his camp with a rabbit he caught earlier. He touches Pancake from behind, when we see the dead dog squirting blood on his face. We switch to a group of friends traveling in a car to spend a lovely, relaxing and sexually overheated vacation in the woods. They stop at a gas station. Jeff gets out of the car and we see why the wardrobe stylist only got one credited job in the past 5 years. The group approaches a kid wearing a rabbit mask and Paul tries to introduce himself. Dennis bites him for some reason, but Paul can't pull his hand out from a kid's mouth, as he isn't a Sigma male. The father comes out and screams at the kid for biting city folk again. Paul tells the father to take it easy on him as it wasn't the kid's fault. He is clearly not old enough to understand what a handshake means. Papa Special tells them that Dennis is not like other kids, so they should be aware of him. Jeff tries to pull the "my dad is a lawyer" trick and threatens him with a lawsuit. Paul washes his hand at a tap behind the house. The others are looking at the local cuisine, which happens to be fox piss and bird shit in jars. The other man warns them to take care of themselves in the woods, as a few hikers got really sick few weeks ago. The group wants to know what happened to them when they hear Daddy Anger Issues scream at Bert for stealing a candy bar. Bert tells him he is a kleptomaniac and steals things for no reason, so our group drives off, leaving the Snickers bar behind. Dennis watches them drive off. They arrive at the cabin when Bert gets an anxiety attack as there is no internet, TV or weed.
No GTA 5, no Black Ops 2, no Stampy, no Minecraft.
True horror indeed. Bert takes out a rifle, as he thinks it is good time to practice. Paul tells him to be careful, but Bert is a nerd, which equals to a degenerate if you ask the director of the movie. He nearly kills Paul, which makes him think how irresponsible and dangerous he is, so he says this.
Cool.
The movie really wants us to believe he is a monkey, so he imitates peeing with the fire starter liquid. He then says to himself that he is going to go hunting for animals, leaving the fire unattended. Karen is taking selfies when Paul asks her what's up with the signal. She tells him she can still post to social media, but it takes longer to upload. Paul tries to flirt with her while she undresses. Jeff and Marcy are already doing the adult stuff inside, while Paul is listening to stories how other guys kissed Karen before. He has enough and kisses Karen. It was so good she immediately abandons the ship. Bert is playing in the woods, just like every gamer would in America. He shoots the hermit we saw earlier and now he is bleeding heavily. He asks Bert to help him, but he threatens him to make him stay away. He leaves the man there to look for help. Jeff and Marcy are gently treading on the fire when Bert arrives back. They ask him if he left one of his chromosomes at home, as not even a child would do stuff like this. Bert just gets inside, not answering any of their questions. At night, they drink and talk around the fire. Paul tells a very spooky story as it is mandatory at every campfire. Grim, another hiker, gets there and sits down with his dog. He is acting weird and creepy, so Jeff asks him to leave. Grim takes out a bag of weed which is way too big to just carry around, but it does the job and everyone instantly likes him. Rain is coming, so Grim leaves to pack his tent, but he promises to come back and bring the weed as well. Karen is telling a story about how she used to masturbate when someone bangs on the door. They expect Grim, but the hermit shows up. Bert locks the door on him and tells the others that he is contagious. The hermit gets into their car and locks the doors on himself. The man is about to exit the vehicle, but the script was written by bonobos, so Paul smashes the mirror and the windshield for some reason. Bert is really missing his beloved chromosome, so he decides to shoot the tire, as that would make the man exit the car. Marcy pours the fire starter liquid on him and of course, Jeff was taking a fucking torch outside and accidentally drops it to burn the hermit alive. The hermit then runs away. Looney Tunes really need to step up their game to beat this scriptwriting. We then see the actors trying to act, but it doesn't really work out as my morning struggle on the toilet has more emotions than this scene. They discuss what they can do in this situation and Karen wants to tell the police what happened. They think the hermit was infected with the same disease that the man at the gas station told them about. Bert tells them they are going to fix the tire tomorrow and report it as an accident. Marcy leaves with a boat to get help as she forgot that Atlantis isn't real. Although they agreed that they are going to fix the car and head back, no one does anything. The actress playing Karen makes sure to never get a role in a movie scoring more than 5 points on IMDb, as she shakes like a mall massage chair under the name of acting. Paul tries to confront her with saying that it was an accident. He then gives her a glass of tap water. Karen feels so refreshed that she forgets last night for a moment. Jeff and Bert are also looking for help when they find a house. They hear a pig screaming, so they decide to check it out. A woman is slaughtering in the barn. She tells them the hog is infected and she can't eat its meat. She tells them they won't find a mechanic there, only in town. She tells them they can radio Ricky, as he owns a tow truck. They head to her house and tell her about the guy who got into their car last night. The lady asks them if it was Henry, her cousin. She shows a picture of him, and as soon as Bert and Jeff realizes they killed her cousin, they start lying about it. They don't even call the tow truck, they just leave and tell her they are going to fix the car themselves. Marcy arrives back and the Dynamite duo lies about finding the dead man's relative. Deputy Winston is meditating when Paul interrupts her, so she draws a gun on him. At this point I'm out of words and don't know how to describe how retarded this movie is. So let's just skip the cheesy, pointless conversation here. In a nutshell, the deputy acts like she has a boner the whole time and hits on Paul. She leaves and promises to send a tow truck up the next day. We switch to Karen, who is having a nightmare. Paul and Bert finally start cleaning up the car, but the hermit's very angry doggo spots them. The dog is about to attack, but Marcy saves them by shooting at it. Good thing that rifle is always conveniently around. Jeff calls the Justice League to have a meeting and tells them he wants to leave as he thinks something is coming for them. Karen feels sick and leaves the table, so Paul goes after her. He keeps bringing her the water that presumably causes the infection. Bert is changing the tires while Jeff is standing guard with the rifle. You might ask, why did they even look for a tow truck when they could just easily change the tire? Good question, let me know when you find the answer. The dog comes back and tries to tell Bert how shit he is at changing tires. Jeff thinks it is kind of offensive, so he shoots at the dog. The dog tries to make it easy for him and doesn't even move, but Jeff still manages to miss every shot. Paul is being useful and doing the adult stuff with Karen, but when he tries to do the magic hand trick, he realizes that Karen is literally rotting.
Ew! What the
Somehow Karen didn't see this huge rash on her tights. Paul runs to get help as he panics. Bert is doing the first logical move in history and locks Karen in her room. They want to quarantine Karen in the boathouse, so they can stay away from her. 2 seconds later, they hold her hands while escorting her. They close the door on her and Paul runs away to look for help in the middle of the night. He decides that the road is for pussies and goes into the woods to find help Snow White style. He finds out that the forest animals aren't like in Disney cartoons and runs away as he hears the doggo growling. Marcy brings food for Karen, but Karen is being Karen and takes offense in quarantining her. Paul finds Walter White, but they just scare him away and refuse to help. He heads back to the house and we see Karen taking photos in the cabin. The A-team is arguing about sleeping alone or together. Paul calms them down when they see the dog covered in blood trying to enter the cabin. The infected dog magically disappears and they head out with the rifle to kill it. Of course, the dog is just fucking with them, so by the time they get out, he is long gone. Bert is on watch, but they all fall asleep. In the morning, Marcy and Paul opens the door and see Karen in a horrible state. They finally decide to start the car when Bert coughs up blood and finds rashes on his arm. He speeds off to the city, since the others are still bitching about stuff no one cares about. Jeff goes inside and drinks from the tap water. He grabs the beer and leaves. Paul grabs Karen's clothes and sheets and throws them into the river, which makes zero sense, but he lacks brain cells, so we forgive him. Marcy thinks they are all going to die, so she and Paul start the sex, while Jeff is getting wasted in an abandoned cabin and Karen is hours away from dying. How romantic. Bert gets to the store they stopped before and asks Daddy number 1 to call a doctor. Dennis, the kid, thinks Bert is a pancake and bites him. Daddy of the Year wants to shoot him down, but the other guy stops him. Team Alabama then decides to gather their forces and hunt down each and every one of the camping people to stop the infection from spreading. Paul got bored of Marcy and heads outside to bring some water to the breathing corpse we call Karen. The hillbillies are chasing Bert while Marcy finds out she is also infected. Bert's car runs out of gas and Marcy is taking a bath. Paul goes to look for Jeff, when the hermit emerges from the lake and attacks him. Paul fends him off and kills him finally. Marcy peels her skin off accidentally and panics in the bathtub, as it turns to a bloodbath. Paul realizes that the infection is coming from the water, as he sees a sign from the other side of the lake. Marcy goes outside and collapses on the ground when the hermit's dog finally tears her apart. Paul gets back to the cabin, opens the door of the boathouse, and kills the dog. Karen begs for him to end her life. Paul is about to shoot, but the gun isn't firing. He grabs a shovel and pierces her mouth with it. It is so ineffective, that Karen asks him to do it again. He is too much a pussy to do it, so he sets her on fire instead, like that worked great before. Karen screams in pain, as Paul watches the boathouse burn to the ground. Bert arrives back, and when Paul asks him what happened, the hillbillies shoot and kill Bert. Paul grabs the rifle and guns down the team, as the safety was on before, and that's why he couldn't shoot Karen. Paul then finds the truck the hillbillies used and tries to drive away. He realizes he is also infected and drives the car into a tree. Paul finds the deputy and tries to convince her to give him a ride. The deputy draws her gun on him again, but refuses to shoot him. The deputy tells him there is a shortcut in the woods and he can find a doctor that way faster. Paul leaves at the direction, but realizes that there is no road there and the deputy lied to him. He gets lost and screams the deputy's name in anger. Jeff gets back to the cabin next day, and sees that he won the Battle Royal match. He screams "Winner, winner, chicken dinner," only to realize he is infected as well. The deputy of course joined the game earlier and she ain't taking second place, so she shoots Jeff with a sniper rifle. We see Paul having Dennis as the visitor before the end credits.